fantastic. Wow, yippee, great. Problem is they cooked them in the oven with the same gluten-based pizza crusts, and people can have reactions to just the crumbs of the gluten-based pizza crust that gets on cauliflower pizza crust. So be aware of that cross-contamination and know that gluten-friendly is not the same as gluten-free.
Cue music. Places, everybody, places. We're starting in 3, 2.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. I've brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted.
Thank you for joining us here on the Autoimmune Hour with Sharon Sayler. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio. Join the Autoimmune Hour's Courage Club. Sign up now at understandingautoimmune.com. Now, back to your host, Sharon Sayler.
Welcome, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler from SharonSayler.com, and it's my honor and pleasure to be with you here. And of course, understandingautoimmune.com is where you can find over 480 and counting episodes of the show. And I'm so thankful to be able to still be doing the show after a decade. I'm doing it today as a solo. No guest to interview today. We're just going to chat about travel and adventure and live your life regardless of your diagnosis, because I'm out traveling. By the time you see this, I'll be safe and sound at home. I just thought I have a few minutes here that I would quickly record some of the things that came to mind that when I travel before, I'll say, the virus. I used to travel quite a lot. And then, of course, we all had a great big hiatus there in the middle. And I'm back out traveling again, off and on, not as much as I was before, but still loving it. And there's a lot of things I've learned about traveling if you have an autoimmune condition or a chronic illness or disease. And I just want to first say you're not your diagnosis, and not to limit your life based on your diagnosis. I like to say survivor to thriver is where we're all at. However you define thriver is up to you. And to me, it's been incremental. I'd get, okay, this is better than that. Oh, I'm great. I'm a thriver here. What's the next step? What's the next baby step I can take to become even better, to increase my capacity to overcome certain things that are happening, whether it was changes to my diet, better sleep hygiene. I'll say better sleep. People often misunderstand the word sleep hygiene, but learning how to sleep better, stress reduction, understanding my autonomic nervous system, all sorts of things. And that has allowed me to continue the life that I want to lead, having adventures around the world. And that's really important to me. And if it's important to you, maybe you don't want around the world, you just want to be able to go up to the mountains or down to the coast, something like that. Here's some travel tips for you to consider. Some of what I'll be talking about is airlines and flights, but I think it applies to almost any kind of travel, actually. Most of my adventures tend to involve an airline, so a little bit of history there. So my first tip, my first thought is really plan ahead. Now, I am planning more since my diagnosis than I ever did before. Certainly not just throwing a backpack and away you go, okay? The first thing to do is talk to your doctor, make sure it's okay, then explain what you're going to do and what your plans are. And if they have any tips or tricks or help to getting you into tip-top shape before that travel date. And then while you're at the doctor's, get a letter from the doctor that states specifics about your diagnosis and your care routine. Because if, heaven forbid, something happens abroad and you need someone to better understand your condition, this doesn't have to be your whole medical file, but just certain things about you that are unique to you, maybe some allergies, or if you have specific conditions like maybe balance issues and somebody might think it's something else. You can just have your doctor describe some of the uniquenesses about you. And then also ask sometimes the prescriptions won't allow you to get larger bottles or smaller bottles. I like to get a little small bottle because I can always have that in reserve. So I always take extra of any prescription medications or supplements I have. Or a large bottle, sometimes if you're going to be gone a long time, you won't be able to get that prescription as easily. So judge how much medication you'll need and always take some extra. Little tip about medication and supplements, always take them in the original bottle. That way, whenever anybody wants to check your luggage, there's no question about what is this weird looking capsule or this weird looking pill, right? It's in the original bottle. You've got the prescription number or it's in the supplement bottle. So that's just a quick way to avoid any misunderstandings or mishaps there. Planned for extras. You never know. Some could get ruined. Who knows? You fall in the pool. Who knows? And so have plenty and have extras with you so you don't have to worry about finding it abroad. Also, any over-the-counter medications that you like, a lot of them are available worldwide, but oftentimes in different names. And you're like, I don't see what I'm looking for. So if you have over-the-counter products that you require, go ahead and take some of those with you as well. And plus, I also have a little first aid kit. I find that really important to take. And nowadays it contains a mask. It contains hand sanitizer. It actually contains gloves as well as tissues. Let's see, what else does it have in it? I should have brought it here with me right now. But just consider a first aid bag. It doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be a lot. If you, whatever it is that you feel you might need, because that saves time in trying to find something abroad. And like I said, oftentimes in foreign countries, the names are different than what we know them by. And so it's always important to have what you need and think ahead. Like that law about if you have it, you probably won't need it. And that's the best way to plan, I think. One time I took a trip to Europe, and this particular country, I don't know why I didn't know. I guess I didn't think about it. In hindsight, I probably knew, I just didn't think about it. But this particular country had a lot of stairs, a lot of steps, and a lot of cobblestone. And that took extra effort for me to do. I was prepared for the walking, but not prepared for all of those stairs. So that's another part of plan ahead with your doctor's help or your fitness expert or your physical therapist's help. Work out a routine that will keep you being able to go at the level that you want to go on your adventure. You can start months beforehand. And hey, a little bit of extra help that way never hurts to build up your strength. And so to keep those kinds of things in mind, like where am I going and what are some of the topography that I need to pay attention to. I had a friend that went to this is such an amazing trip. I haven't done it. I'm not sure I would, but I loved hearing about their trip. Went to the Himalayas and it was quite a trek. And they actually trained for 2 years, but they did do it. And they were so happy that they were able to train for 2 years to make it a successful adventure for them. One of the things about planning ahead also is research healthcare facilities. It's really helpful to know who and what is available to you and what you might need to take. And just understanding not every place you go will have the healthcare types of facilities you're used to, but know where they are and how you can get access to them. Also check with any insurance companies, whether it's your healthcare insurance or your travel insurance, how it works with healthcare issues, because it might be a pre-existing condition for some things. So it's really important to talk to experts in insurance and travel insurance and your medical insurance to see if your medical insurance is transportable with you on a trip, especially abroad. A lot of things to consider before you go, I know. But even if you don't have a diagnosis, a lot of these are good things to do anyway. Another tip when we travel, I like to say, is manage your physical comfort. I don't know about you, but the plane seats I've been on lately are incredibly hard. I don't know what they've done with the padding, but even with my own extra personal padding, shall I say, the seats are incredibly hard. So whether it's a little blow up cushion that you want to take, or I oftentimes just travel with a towel, which is nice. And I just fold that up and sit on the towel. So it's dual purpose. I have a towel for my travels. If I don't have one, I can take to the beach, whatever it is I'm doing, as well as I can use it as a seat cushion. So plan ahead for your physical comfort. Also, whether you like the neck pillows, or there's so many types of things that just make you more comfortable. I travel with a great big embarrassing, my family and friends call it my airplane bathrobe. It's not. It's actually a real sweater, but it's big and bulky and has what I call a monk's hood, a really big hood. And what I love about it is, I don't know about you, but flying can get cold, especially if you're a window seat person. It can get cold. So I love this. It comes down midi length, which is about my calf length. And it's big, and the sleeves are quite long when they're unfolded. So I have built-in hand protectors. And if I just want to be left alone on a long flight, you know what? I'll tell the flight attendant ahead of time, because they're required. Believe it or not, most of them say they're required. Whether they are, who knows? But they say they're required to wake you when it's mealtime, so you don't get upset that you missed a meal. So I always tell the flight attendant, hey, I'm good. I'm not going to have your meal. Let me sleep through this. And I put my flying coat on. It's actually a sweater, like I said. My family's actually sometimes just, I don't know her, but it's okay, because it's about my physical comfort and getting to my destination in a happy mood and a happy body, happy mind, all of that good kind of stuff. Okay. And I throw that monk's hood over my head, and it comes down to here, and I just snooze out, and I stay nice and warm and toasty the whole time. And by the way, it's so big and bulky, it also can work as a seat cushion. Plan ahead for your own physical comfort. Now, I made a bunch of notes, so I'm just going to refer to my notes, because I've been, like I said, I've been traveling. And so whenever something came to mind, I made a note about it. So we talked about carry extra medication and the documentation of your medication. If it's some sort of, what do they call that? Not classified medicine, but prescriptions and things like that, that might need documentation that you are you and it is your medication. So make sure you have that with you. I think that's it for the pre-planning types of things. Take a note with you that has your emergency contact. And also, if you have or get one of those first aid bracelets, is always helpful, especially if you have allergies that are quite severe, or some other medical condition that's quite severe. Consider one of the first aid bracelets that they have. And I've seen some nowadays that look like jewelry, so just consider one of those as well. I think the important thing to consider is plan on the first 24 hours of your trip being at a much slower pace. Just let it go. Once you get to your destination, plan on another 24 hours just to recover, especially if you're traveling multiple time zones. You want to allow your body time to recover before you start on this grand adventure, because I know from firsthand experience that if you start out gung-ho, here we go, doing absolutely everything, at least for me, I ran out of gas. And I got so fatigued towards the end of a trip not too long ago that it really became difficult for me to enjoy the last couple of days, because I'd been going 125% from the beginning. Allow yourself some time to recover from the flight, the trip, however you got there, and just give yourself that space and grace to really be able to have the best trip possible and be able to take out the endurance part of it. So allow for the time zone changes and allow yourself plenty of time to sleep and recover. Stay hydrated. I know lots of travel modalities are incredibly dehydrating, so stay hydrated, and perhaps talk to your physician about whether electrolytes, or depending on the heat you're going into, if something like electrolytes or salts would be good for you. Certainly not good for everyone or recommended for everyone, but ask if where you're going, that kind of thing is important to know about. So staying hydrated is important from the get-go. Sometimes it's really hard when we travel to catch up on our hydration. And so if we keep it at an optimum level from the beginning, it's always helpful. I'm just going to check my notes here. Oh, yeah. Listen to your body. That's really important to me. Don't overlook it. Don't talk yourself out of it. If your body's feeling something, honor that. Give it what it needs, whether it's a couple of hours off or sitting in a park, enjoying bird song, whatever it is. So listen to your body and be grateful that it's talking to you and letting you know, hey, I want to do this adventure too, but I'm needing to some breath work or some meditation, some mindfulness work, something like that. Another thing to consider is, depending on your condition, you might need some sort of mobility aid. Now, I do travel with a cane. I like it. It's wonderful. But a little quick story about traveling with a cane. I currently use one of those fold-up medical ones. And the reason I do is, for the longest time, I didn't really want a cane. So I traveled with a walking stick, which is different than hiking poles. Looks more like a cane, really, but it's considered a hiking stick, a walking stick. Like I said, not those great big walking poles. And what was fascinating to me is it was confiscated one time. I wouldn't say confiscated. I had to go back and check it. And that was really weird because my bags had already been checked. So I had to check this cane, this walking stick, through as a piece of baggage. So you need to understand, it's like, okay, was that really worth it? The reason why this was so fascinating to me, they took off the tip on the end. Honestly, I didn't know the tip came off. They took off the tip at the end, and apparently on these walking sticks, there is a tiny little screw, and a tiny, really tiny, like tiny, that I guess projects out if you're on rough land or something. I don't know. I don't use it for that. You guys might be screaming at me, but Sharon, it's used for this. I get it. I just don't know. I didn't know it was there. And apparently that's considered a weapon. Just telling you flat out, if you do want to use a mobility aid like a cane, make sure that it's a medically approved cane and not any sort of walking stick or hiking stick. That's just my story there. And if it's a big item like a wheelchair or sometimes the oxygen generators and things like that, contact the way you're going, whether it's a cruise ship or an airlines, whatever, and speak to them regarding their best way to travel with it. They'll have all sorts of ways and rules and regulations and tips and tricks to travel with mobility aids. Be sure and check with your airline so they have it on record that you're coming with a mobility aid. You don't have to with a cane, but something large like a wheelchair or oxygen generators, things like that. You'll contact the method of transportation and have them tell you how best to travel with it. Another tip to think about is the kinds of little extra things you're going to wish you had, not on your best days, but I will say on your most fatigued days or your most busy days during your trip. What other things would you like? So like a fold-up hat, sunglasses, all those sorts of things. And I say take your favorite sunscreen too, because I've been abroad and I have found sunscreens there, but oftentimes I don't read the language. I don't know exactly what's in the ingredients. And one time I got hives. So just fair warning, take your own sunscreens and things that you're used to, okay? Now, sometimes you have to pack those in your big checked bag, and that's okay. If you lost your sunscreen, not the worst thing, right? Okay, so let's see. What are some other tips? You guys know that I don't do a lot of these sort of without somebody to chat with, without an interview here, but I just really wanted to share these travel tips with you. And so I took notes. A favorite one of mine is stress management. I don't know about you, but from the minute I get up and get ready to go on the day of the travel, maybe the day or two before, my stress level skyrockets, and I really have to work to manage it so I don't get fatigued even before I walk out the door. And so I always have things in place that I like to do, checklists. I have friends and family that help me. Either it's get to the airport or actually even park and help me walk my luggage in to the airport. Little tip about luggage. If you can, travel light. It doesn't have to be just with a carry-on or a backpack or something. That's up to you. I check my bags every so often too. It just depends on how long you're going to be gone and everything. But I'm not one that has multiple bags, because what happened to me one time is I had multiple bags. And when I got to my location, I didn't have anybody to help me with all those bags. And I really got extremely fatigued. And I know it sounds like what I was, but from the baggage claim out to where the taxis were, which was way away, I'm struggling with extra bags and they're heavy and I'm sweating and it's hot. And by the time I sat down in that taxi, I was just like, oh, forget this. One of the things you might want to do is travel with your own food. I like traveling with my own food, not only in my checked luggage, but when I carry it onto the plane, I do have dietary restrictions, and I have found that it's very difficult for a lot of different places to do dietary restrictions. So I carry my own food. A couple thoughts about that is oftentimes you'll see gluten friendly. Gluten friendly is not the same as gluten free. Just a little note, if it isn't a big deal for you, gluten friendly is good. But if you are needing to be gluten free, understand that gluten friendly is not gluten free. Case in point was pizza. I found a place that had cauliflower crusts, right? I thought, oh, goody, oh, wonderful, I can eat a pizza. And lo and behold, they cook it in the same oven as they cook the flour, the gluten, the traditional pizza. And what happens is just even a minor amount of cross-contamination can really affect some people. So no, the gluten-friendly is not the same as gluten-free when we travel. And a lot of people don't understand allergies. So if you have a significant allergy, it's important to really advocate for yourself if you have an allergy. And of course, if you have allergies, always travel with EpiPens. They're very hard to get in certain locations. So always travel with your EpiPens if you have allergies and you know that's a necessity. Don't leave home without it. Another thing about traveling on airlines and bringing my own food on the airlines is I learned early on to know that not to travel with real smelly food. So I'm thinking about things like broccoli, cauliflower, let's see, hard-boiled eggs, curries, certain foods that have really strong odors when you're at sea level or at your altitude, wherever you live, just is, for whatever reason, I don't know the science. Maybe if you know the science, you can put it in the comments. When you get at altitude, whatever that is, the smell of the food is amplified. And that's all you need to be doing is upsetting people for rows around you with the intense smell of the food that you've brought on board. It's a pretty crazy phenomenon. I was even surprised at hard-boiled eggs. I like to travel with those because they're a quick and easy protein that I can eat. And you put a little ice pack with it and it stays safe and secure for a relatively short flight. And the problem with them is, boy, do they off gas at altitude. So that's just a little reminder about your foods. And one of the things about foods also to consider, as we've been talking about concierge, is to check with them, or maybe even use a search engine to find specific restaurants or places you can buy your specialty foods that you need. And so always be aware of how much you're packing and travel as light as possible. And then also, if you can, I know it's an extra expense, but oftentimes I choose to forgo other expenses and make sure I have hired a driver at my location. You can find drivers, chauffeurs, whatever you want to call them. Depends on the location, what they're called. You can call your hotel or where you're staying. Or if you're going to a cruise, call the cruise line. Do they know of drivers that they recommend in the area? Plenty of ways to find a driver, but I like the drivers that actually come into baggage claim, help you get your bags out. And usually they're the ones with the little signs with your name on it. That's always cool too. But anyway, get yourself a driver. You'll be really happy you did. And the nice thing, for the majority of trips I've taken, regardless of where I've been, the drivers speak English enough that we can have quite a conversation. And I find about all sorts of interesting places to go and fun things to do that maybe weren't in the travel book. And some of the ones I'm thinking about going, perhaps they're going, maybe it was good 10 years ago, but I don't recommend it now. I'm like, what do you recommend? So that's another travel tip I do. I know it's an extra expense, but it's one of those things I really choose to do. I find it helpful. A quick little story about that. After I decided about hiring a driver, I was so thankful I did. I was headed to Beijing and the flight was delayed. It turned out to be a 14-hour flight, absolutely exhausted when I landed in Beijing. And it was 1:45 a.m. There was really I didn't see any taxis or anything like that available. And I was so thankful I had learned my lesson about hiring a driver, because although they did not wait for me, actually they had called in and realized my flight had been delayed. They showed up on time, even though it was the middle of the night, and they got me to my location. So I was so thankful that I had learned that lesson in a few trips previously. It was so worth it. I can't imagine trying to find my way to the hotel at 1:45 in the morning, anywhere, let alone Beijing, where I don't speak the language. Oh my goodness. The crazy stories we have on our adventures, right? Another thing is if you have any local contacts, or sometimes depending on how prepared you want to be, finding out the location or a phone number of your local embassy, or even if there is an embassy in the cities you're going to and where they're located. And you can always find out a lot of information from a concierge in your hotels, or sometimes if you're staying at hostels, depending on what you're doing, they often will be happy to provide you with all sorts of local things that you need to know, including medical facilities. One thought is your doctor could provide you with medical facilities, but they may not know people in other countries where urgent care is, or what urgent care is called, let alone where it is. So check in with the hotels or these other places where you might be staying and find out where are the medical facilities that you can use just in case of emergency. I know it sounds like a lot of pre-planning, but to me, it's important to know. While we're on the topic of talking to something like the concierge, et cetera, always check in about their accessibility. I have been in places in Europe where accessibility wasn't a priority. And while I'm thankful I don't need it, I do notice it. One place I went, the elevator was so small, it was myself and one bag, and that was it. I don't know how anybody in some sort of mobility device would have used it. And so it's really important to check wherever you're staying. Do not assume that other places, including in the States, your own local places where you're staying. I've had to go to the beach before and realize that, gosh, there's a limited number of accessibility rooms available, let alone having a lot of access to things. So it's important to ask those kinds of questions before you book a stay. And maybe your hotel does, but you might want to check, I've been planning on going to this museum or that museum. Are they accessible as well? Because a lot of times, as I said, on many of my travels, accessibility for the disabled is not a high priority, unfortunately. And I was mentioning about my drivers and how I love that they speak English. So it's also important to consider the language barriers that you might have. I suggest wherever you're going, learning a few basic words. Hello, where's the bathroom? Water, please. Some of those types of things. Where's my hotel? The name of your hotel. Being able to say some very simple things. And I have found that when I try to use the local language, most often people are extremely friendly and they try to reciprocate the friendliness and use, maybe it's their English is as good as my use of their language. And nowadays with our phones, there are many translation apps. I found them useful with a little asterisk or a caveat by it, because sometimes when I use my translation app, I structure my sentences for English, and that doesn't mean every other language is structured that same way. So like noun, verb type of thing. Maybe that's not how it is. Sometimes I've talked into the translation app that I use the way I would say it, and yet it translates and you hand the translation device to someone else in their native tongue, and they read it and they give you the strange look of they don't get it until you see them sounding out each word, and then they realize that the words or the nouns or the verbs or what adverbs and adjectives have been misplaced. And it's so much fun because they have this moment of, I get what we're trying to talk about now, right? Download a translation app beforehand. Yes, there are translations by the big brand name technology company, but that requires internet access. And so make sure you download a translation app that doesn't require internet access, or is at least moderately available over the data phone lines, because you don't want to get stuck without being able to use your translation app. And so that's a really good idea to use. If you have some friends in other countries, and just ask them, hey, I'm coming your way. I have lots of friends abroad, and many times I'm saying, hey, I'm coming your way. Who do you suggest? What do you suggest? Where do you suggest? And oftentimes I end up having a lunch or a dinner with friends around the world. It's just so wonderful and so exciting. So take advantage of any local contacts you have. And it's easier today than ever to know people around the world. So surprising to me. So once you're there, it's important to get adequate sleep and make sure that you're comfortable. And not all places have AC. I like to carry a little portable rechargeable fan. It's always helpful. Sometimes to put on your nightstand and help you out that way. It's really important. One of the things that I find useful. And another thing I find useful is extra plastic bags. They don't have to be big ones. They can be the kind the produce come in, or they can be like the sealable kind, but you'll always be surprised is that sometimes you need those sorts of things. I've been so far out in the middle of nowhere that occasionally I've been asked to put my shoes in plastic bags just to keep other things out of them in the middle of the night. So it's important to just have those little things that don't take up a lot of space. But that's just a little tip off my top of my head, one of my little rabbit hole trips. We need to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk some more about some of the things I've learned traveling over all of these years and the things that I see different between traveling when you have a diagnosis of something long-term or chronic and when you don't. So we'll be right back.
The Autoimmune Hour will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by understandingautoimmune.com to learn more.
Times TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour. I'm Sharon Sayler, as I said before, and we've been talking about travel tips and hacks and what I've learned on trips while I have my diagnosis. I just went on thinking about the time that I actually had my shoes tied up in these little plastic bags to keep them safe overnight. Amazing. We're back to space and grace. Give yourself time to really unwind. Breathe through it. Sometimes things will happen. There's all sorts of mishaps, miscommunications, timing. Sometimes somebody will be late. Sometimes they'll be early. Who knows what happens? But just being able to go with the flow. And I always tell myself, oh, it's another adventure. It's just another adventure. Let's see where this one goes. Sometimes even just a deep breath and an exhale, a loud exhale. Drop your shoulders. You'll feel better. I don't know about you, but when I get stressed, my shoulders come up around my ears. So drop your shoulders and let it go. If you want, I'm all for seeking out professional tour guides. And sometimes you don't have to go with professional tour guides. If you have access for any reason to universities or local groups like that, maybe they have people who are willing to take you off the beaten path and show you what it's really like to be in their hometown or their country. I've done that. I've hired university students to take me places. Do your due diligence, though, right? Do your due diligence. That's where local contacts and hotel concierge and things like that are really helpful. It always helps to have somebody who's got the local inside skinny on the place. It's always fun. I've alluded to earlier about this idea of getting fatigued on your trip. That's really important to remember, is all about energy conservation, so we don't get too fatigued. If we get too fatigued, the next day or 2 days could be totally shot because we can't get out of bed. So energy conservation is really important. You don't want to ruin your whole trip by pressuring your body to do more than it could do right in that moment. Another thought comes to mind is stay connected with your loved one at home. They really want to know that you're doing well and that you're okay. So stay connected with your loved ones at home. Even if it's just a quick little text like doing good, they like to know, eases everybody's mind. And talking about that doing good and the fatigue and everything is set realistic goals. If you've even pre-diagnosis, if you've never walked 2 miles in a day or at one time, don't assume you're going to be able to do it now, okay? Oftentimes people set the most unrealistic goals. And I find I like the kind of travel where I can go at my own pace. Yes, tours are fun and they're nice, and I've done them before. But for me right now, where I am in my life, I like to go at the ones I can go at my own pace. And so I go to a location and I stay in that location for a length of time, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, or even longer, just to be able to scope out the real world here. What's it really like to be here? Who lives here? What kind of people are here? And I have found that people around the world have so much in common that I really like to get to know them all. So that's a fun part of it, is so pace yourself and understand and give yourself that space and grace we've been talking about so far today. And finally, I wanted to talk about proper mindset, positive mindset, and keeping that throughout your entire trip. One of the things that I do every day, whether it's on a trip or I'm at home, is I practice gratitude in the morning. I know there were mornings there at the beginning of my diagnosis, I didn't know I was going to wake up. I honestly didn't know I was going to wake up. And every morning when I wake up and my eyes pop open, I give gratitude for waking up. I thank my body for making it through the night, giving me a nice night's rest, and being able to set the frame for the day, coming from that place of gratitude and happiness, and being at peace with myself where I'm at right now. On that survivor to thriver story we talk about, where we start with our diagnosis and we go from that survivor mode. Yes, we all go through that survivor mode to where we can maintain the body at a certain level. And then each step you take is on the thriver mode. Being thankful for each one of those steps. As I look back over my diagnosis to now, I am way past where the doctor said I would be. Remember, I mentioned those ugly statistics that they gave me. I am so thankful that my mind, body, and spirit, and all the outside help, my community, has gotten me to this point to where I can talk about travel tips that I've learned to travel when your mobility might be a question or whatever it is. You're not your diagnosis. So find your adventures out there. And a positive mindset is about living your life the fullest, regardless of how many days you have left on the calendar. Look, one thing I've learned since my diagnosis is you never know when you're going to get that diagnosis, and you never know how many days left on that calendar. Before my diagnosis, I had been in a car accident, and luckily it wasn't a big deal, but it was a surprise. Boom, bam, it happened out of nowhere. You know what? That could have been the final time too. So come from that spirit of gratitude and adventure and living the life you've been given to its fullest, and helping others along the pathway as well. That's what I love, meeting people and seeing, what do you have in common? What are their needs? What are your needs? And is there synergy between you? That's always awesome to know. And so practicing this positive mindset is important, not only for us on an adventure, but for every day. And as I always close out my shows with, have a great week, whatever your adventure. I truly mean that, because I hope you are finding adventures every day and every week, and setting some goals for some big adventures in your life. I've said it before here a couple of times today, and I really want to reiterate the point. You're not your diagnosis. You're so much more than that. Yes, I get it. You might have a few liabilities right now. You might have a few limitations right now. I get it. We all do. And you have your adventures any way that you can. What brings you joy? What brings you happiness? I know one of my favorite places to go, and it's an adventure, even though it doesn't require a passport or a plane or anything. But my favorite place to go is the ocean. And so when I'm needing an adventure day or even an adventure couple of hours, I find my way down to our local ocean. And that is just such an amazing reset to the whole body. And I think travel does that too. It changes our perspective on life in so many ways. And changing our perspectives, having an open mind is a great way to do it. Sometimes I like to take the observer role. I don't know about you, but sometimes I like to take the observer role on my travels. And I think of myself being over here and looking at the situation, including me, who's over there in my little view, right? Wow, what would it have been like to live here? Whatever it is, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, whatever it is. Or what is it like to live here right now? And take that observer role and learn so much about life. And you'll soon realize that happiness and joy are pretty much the same around the world. And that's what I just love about it. So if you would, I'm going to sign off early. By the time you guys see this, I'll be home. And I'm really excited about that too, because it's been a while since I've been home. Family have been keeping the fort safe and sound for me, which is awesome. I'm actually looking forward to spending some summer times there. And so I'll sign off early and have a great week, whatever your adventures. Join me next week for another brand new episode. And if you would, if you're watching this, please subscribe to whatever way you're watching it, whether it's through the audio programs. Please follow the show, help the algorithms grow the show, get it to a larger group. And if you're watching this in video on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've been around a while, but I have to be honest, I'm not a great video editor. Thank you for being so patient with my video editing. I just love being able to see people's faces and go, oh, that's what they look like. I love that. So if you would, please subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube and help us grow this channel, Understanding Autoimmune. And follow us on social media. We are on Instagram and Facebook, and it's at Understanding Autoimmune, just like it is on YouTube. So I'd be most grateful and happy if you'd become part of our community by following and or subscribing. Thank you so much. Share with me your favorite hacks, and maybe we'll do another episode of all of your favorite hacks and our learnings together on living our best life yet, regardless of our diagnosis. Love you all. Thank you for being part of the community. And if you're new here, welcome. We'll love to see you here and appreciate all of you. Go in gratitude. See you soon. Enjoy.
The information provided on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, including the websites understandingautoimmune.com and lifeinterruptedradio.com, plus social media, is for educational purposes only. What you read, hear, and see on the Autoimmune Hour, Understanding Autoimmune, and Life Interrupted Radio, and its websites, and other media outlets is based on experience only. The information should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes.